I want to welcome to the program right now from Pajamas Media, Bob Owens. Bob, good evening, sir. Thanks for coming back on the show tonight.
Love to do it. I'm kind of depressed with my own Twitter stats after hearing that. But
Well, listen.
I bet you guys are doing so well.
Listen, buddy, my own personal Twitter feed is hovering around 850 right now. So I'm very pleased that NRA News has 25,000, but my personal feed falls way behind that. So I can commiserate with you.
Okay.
All right. Now, you had a great post earlier this week at Pajamas Media talking about this Washington Post story. You say Gunwalker goes Pravda. And honestly, Bob, I get the Washington Post because my wife likes the comics, but I don't usually read the Washington Post. But I was kind of curious. I saw the night before this get posted online, and I was very curious as to where this story would actually wind up in the Washington Post because they haven't covered Fast and Furious much. Really, one story, I think, since February. Page A4, this story screaming that Daryl Issa knew about Fast and Furious a year before now and never registered any objections. And I start reading the story, and it's anonymous sourced. There's nobody going on the record as saying, yeah, this is what this briefing was, and this is what Issa was told. None of that. You could clearly see that this was a smear attempt against Representative Issa, and the Washington Post ran with it.
They ran with it when nobody else would.
Yeah.
And I do mean nobody else would. They had apparently been having this story shopped around for the better part of a week, right around the time that Issa was holding the hearings where the ATF officers testified, is when they started pushing the story to try to discredit Issa. And it took that long for them to get somebody to bite.
And of course, when they do get somebody to bite, one of the reporters, Horwitz, just recently got back from a couple of months suspension for plagiarism. And this was one of the first stories that she wrote going back. And I know that Matthew Boyle at the Daily Caller was trying to get the Post to address why on earth you would let a reporter that should be on some thin ice, rely on anonymous sources for an allegation as explosive as this. And I don't think the Post has ever responded. So, in fact, they never really ran another story that talked about the vehement denial by the spokesman for the House Oversight Committee that Representative Issa ever was briefed on Fast and Furious before these hearings.
Yeah. I have my own speculations as to why Horowitz was chosen.
Yeah.
Basically, she's disposable. She pretty much has to do whatever the editorial board tells her to do if she wants to remain employed. I think that she was more than likely told, you're going to do this, and you're going to take the fall if there's any fallout. And I believe that that was probably a comment made in no uncertain terms. And when you're on thin ice, you do what your boss tells you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much more of this do you think we're going to see, Bob? I mean, because, again, this was pretty explicit. The latest is that now it looks like Ken Melson may not be eager to resign, although sources, again, anonymous sources, say that he's eager to testify before Congress. If he does do that, and if he does tell Congress everything he knows, Frederick Hill, the spokesman for the House Oversight Committee, has made it clear that there were individuals at Justice who knew about this. In fact, he said there were a lot of individuals at Justice who knew about Fast and Furious. I can only imagine that the spin is going to get more desperate as this story gets bigger.
This is the news today that came out that Melson allegedly is willing to testify has got to send a chill down the spine of everybody who was involved in this thing one way or another. He is high enough up in the food chain that he may not know every detail of what was going on, but I bet you he is sitting right dead center in the middle of most of it.
Well, I think you're probably right. In the quote that the LA Times had was that he doesn't want to be the fall guy on this.
Which I absolutely loved. It gave me an excuse to pull up an old Lee Majors image from my blog.
So, it could be a long, hot summer here in Washington, D.C., Bob, because I mean, look, it's clear the Obama administration wants to try to contain this damage. Originally, this was just a local operation. Nobody in D.C. really knew about this. Then you had the revelations that Melson was getting weekly briefings or had asked for weekly briefings, wanted the IP address of the surveillance camera so you could monitor in real time, and that's when the knives came out against Darrell Issa. I don't know what's next, but it seems that as this story gets bigger, the desperate attempts by the administration to either redirect our attention somewhere else, to claim that this is politics as usual, and that may be the thing that drives me the most crazy, Bob, is this argument that's being pushed now that this is just a political event, this is just the Republicans going after Obama, and the bigger issue isn't Fast and Furious. The bigger issue is our gun laws and the need to have a permanent ATF director like Andrew Traver.
You know what? There is a graveyard's worth of dead Mexican law enforcement officers and soldiers that may disagree with that bit of spin. Not to mention a couple of our own officers that have perished because of this crackpot scheme.
Yeah. So do you think that, I got to ask you, because we were talking with Tim Graham earlier tonight from the Media Research Center, and, this is a story that he pointed out, even like Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Glenn Beck, the big conservatives on TV haven't really picked up on this story yet. Do you think at some point they will?
I think they will. I don't want to disparage any of these guys because I honestly don't know for sure. But a lot of them either, I don't think have a whole great working knowledge of, either firearms or the program itself. And a lot of them also probably are more in line talking about some of the other issues of the day, such as, with the Libya funding issue and the ongoing budget mess. We are blessed with a presidency that has given right-side pundits quite a bit of stuff to talk about.
That's an awfully optimistic way of looking at things, Bob. We're blessed that we have a choice of things to discuss each and every night, a smorgasbord of controversies to choose from.
It keeps us from getting bored, doesn't it?
Well, listen, I know that I think Michelle Malkin was on Fox talking about this. It may have been with O'Reilly the other night. So hopefully, as the story again progresses, as it grows some legs, we'll see this become a much bigger story. Because frankly, Bob, I just want this story to get the attention that it deserves.
And there are a lot of good folks working very hard to see that takes place.
Absolutely.
Just like with Congressman Weiner. It was the blogs and the alternative media and the talk show folks that pushed that. Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to see the same thing here. Nobody wanted to talk about that scandal in the media, but you keep the flame alive, don't let it die, and eventually they're going to be forced to cover it. And I think that's what we're quite capable of doing, especially as more and more stuff keeps falling out of this.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, Bob, thank you again for coming on the program. Really
Always
appreciate it, and I with all of the developments, I know we'll be talking again very soon.
Looking forward to it.
All right, have a great weekend, sir.